Hi, my name's Anji and I'll talk about my criterion A mistakes. The graph represents which questions understood to me the most. As you can see, the highest number is 11, which was Muppet. As I said before, that mostly everything that I saw on the test I knew already, but I just froze and freaked out and I didn't know what to do. 3 was Greek to me, which means I didn't understand it at all, had no knowledge about it. And 7 was needed more revision. I knew what to do, but I just wasn't fully prepared for that type of test. Question 1. Which of these is not a surd? The answers available is square root of 81, square root of 24, square root of 144, square root of 30, and square root of 12. How to find out which one is a surd? For example, square root of 2 can't be simplified, so it is a surd. But square root of 4 can be simplified, so it's not. So whatever can't be simplified is a surd, but whatever can be simplified is not. Also, to find out which is a surd and which is not a surd, the surds which repeat forever without any repetitive sequence, which also has a decimal, is called an irrational numbers, which is another name for a surd. So I solved each choice answer by using my calculator. So for square root of 81, I got 9. For the square root of 24, I got this really long decimal number, which is 4.8989794 and onwards. For square root of 144, I got 12. Square root of 30, I got 5.477225575505. And the square root of 12, I got 3.4641016156164. So as you can see, as I said before, the surds which repeat forever without any repetitive sequence, which also has a decimal, is called irrational numbers, another name for a surd. So this makes our answers easy to notice because the answers which have a decimal place or a repetitive number sequence that goes on forever is a surd. So as we can see, square root of 81 is just 9, and the square root of 144 is just 12. So those are not our surds, so that will be our answer. So our answer is A and C, which is square root of 81 and square root of 144. In conclusion of question 1, this was a complete Muppet move I did in my test. I circled the square roots, which are surds, but didn't circle the ones which are not. I knew what to do, but I probably read the question wrong on the test sheet and circled the wrong ones, which was so frustrating to me. So, question 2 is convert these standard forms expressions to numbers. The questions that I got wrong was 9 times 10 to the power of 5 and 1.4 times 10 to the power of 3. First, we will solve the first question, which is 9 times 10 to the power of 5. There is another way to write this equation, which is 9 times 10 times 10. So basically, it's just saying 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 5 times, which is the same as 10 to the power of 5. The way I got my first answer was by using the calculator. The equation I put in was 9 times 10 to the power of 5, and then I will solve 9 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 on the calculator too. Predicting my answer will be 900,000, because the standard form number will be also 10. In standard form, a number is always written as a times 10 to the power n. Key. So a means a number between 1 and 10. And n means how many places to move the decimal point. 10 is another way of 0. So you have 10 to the power of 5. In your answer, you'll have 5 zeros or 5 places. For example, when I put 9 times 10 to the power of 5, I got 900,000. So as you can see, 900,000 has 5 zeros. That means 5 places. So that makes sense. And when I put 9 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, 5 times of 10, which is the same as 10 to the power of 5, I got the exact same number, which is 900,000, which means 5 places after the number, which is 5 zeros after the number. This is a positive decimal place, as it is in the 10 zones. As my answer, I put it below the decimal point, which was a negative number. For example, 9 times 10 to the power of 5 gave us 900,000. But my answer was wrong. I got 0.0009. So I mistaken the question for 9 times 10 to the power of negative 5, which gave me this answer. But the actual question was positive 5. This question makes it completely different, as the negative power has the final number below the decimal point. So I'll solve question 2. Question 2 is exactly the same as question 1. So it's 1.4 times 10 to the power of 3. As I said before, n, which is 3 in this case, means how many places or values are after the decimal point. So my predicting answer when I look at this after I learned my mistake is 1.400. As I said before, 10 is sort of like a 0. So the power of 3 is how many places is after the decimal point. So it would be 1.400. You fill in the gaps. But the answer I got was 0.0014 or 0.14. Note that any zeros before the decimal place is unnecessary. So this is of course wrong. As I predicted before, the answer would be 1,400, which is the right answer. So the actual answer is 1400, which is 1,400. Question 3, simplify. So these are the questions that I got wrong on my test. So question 1 is 4 square root of 48, and question 2 is 3 square root of 50 plus 6 square root of 8. First of all, I will solve question 1, which is 4 square root of 48. My answer is 16 square root of 4. I was off by one number. The actual answer was 16 square root of 3. First of all, I had to solve what was square root of 48. Another way, which can be written as, is 16 times 3. This is where I messed up completely, and I don't know how. So on the right hand side, I'm solving what is square root of 16. And on the left side, I'm solving what's square root of 3. So square root of 16 is square root of 4. And on the left hand side is square root of 3, which cannot be simplified. This cannot be simplified, so we have to leave it. So we added those two together, which gave us 4 to the square root of 3, which equals to 4 times 4 to the square root of 3. As I messed up before in the paragraph, it's meant to be square root of 16 times 3, which gave me my answer, 16 square root of 3. Now I'll answer question 2. I mistakenly wrote it as question 3. So the equation here is 3 square root of 50 plus 6 square root of 8. My mistake was I added them up together, which gave me 9 square root of 58. First of all, we need to solve the roots. On the left hand side, I am solving 3 square root of 50, and on the right hand side, I'm solving 6 square root of 8. First of all, we'll do the left hand side. Another way to write 3 square root of 50 is square root of 2 times 15, which will also give you 3 square root of 50. Also, to find out square root of 50, there's another way to write it, which is square root of 2 times 5. And from there on, to get 3 square root of 50, you can do square root of 2 times 3 times 5, which will equal to square root of 2 times 15. Now on the left-hand side, I'm solving 6 to the square root of 8. Another way you can write 6 to the square root of 8 is square root of 2 times 12, which will give you 6 square root of 8. Just solve square root of 8 will equal to 2 square root of 2. Another way you can write it is 2 square root of 2 times 6, which will equal to square root of 2 times 12. So on the left-hand side of the equation and on the right-hand side, you put them together. So this will give you square root of 2 times 15 plus square root of 2 times 12. And the answer that will give you is square root of 2 times 27, which is 27 square root of 2. So my final answer is 27 square root of 2. Question 4 is to calculate this equation. Cube root of 27 over 125 to the power of 2. So this needed a lot more revision. I didn't understand a thing, but then when I revised over it through my math book and what we did in class, I finally understood how to do this step by step. First of all, we'll solve everything that's in the brackets. So my answer I got was cube root of 729 over 25. Another right to write the original equation was cube root of 27 times 27 over 5 times 5. Now to the next step. You have to do the same on both sides. So it's cube root of 729 over cube root of 25, which gave us the answer 9 over cube root of 25. So you had to solve the top denominator first. Next, you put the cube root on top of the top denominator, which gave us 9 cube root of 25 to the power of 2 over 25. Another way to write it is 9 times 5 cube root of 5 over 25. So my answer was 9 cube root of 5 over 5. So I did 5 divided by 25 was 5. So that's what I did. And that is my final answer. 9 cubed root of 5 over 5. So the last question is rationalize the denominator. So the question is square root of 2 minus 1 over 6 plus square root of 2. So first of all, you have to conjugate both sides, which is the numerator and denominator. So you have to get the denominator and turn the positive into a negative. So it's 6 minus square root of 2. You put them both top on the numerator and denominator, so you can times them together to get your next step. So when you times them together, you get the results of 6 square root of 2 minus 6 plus square root of 2 over 6 to the power of 2 minus square root of 2 to the power of 2. And from there on, I put brackets between the 6 square root of 2 plus square root of 2 so I can solve that. And my answer that I got was 7 square root of 2. So it will be easier for me to solve and understand what I am doing. So in the next step, we have 7 to the square root of 2 minus 6 over 6 to the power of 2 minus square root of 2 to the power of 2. So I solved the top numerator first. So I left 7 square root of 2 and I just did minus 2 minus 6, which gave me negative 8. And for the denominator, I did 6 to the power of 2, which gave me 36, and left square root of 2 to the power of 2. So altogether, it gave me negative 8 plus 7 to the square root of 2 over 36 minus square root of 2 to the power of 2. Square root of 2 to the power of 2 is the same as the actual number 2. So I turned that to a whole number 2. So then I got as my denominator 36 minus 2. So my final answer I got was negative 8 plus 7 to the square root of 2 over 34, which can also be written as 7 square root of 2 minus 8 over 34. That is my final answer. So how to rationalize the denominator? So the first step, you multiply the numerator and the denominator by the radical. That will get rid of the radical in the denominator, which would be 6 plus square root of 2. But you have to make it into a negative number, so it's 6 minus square root of 2. Then you simplify the radicals by adding and timesing and subtracting to whatever numerator and denominator number you have. And lastly, if you have to, simplify the fraction. What are ATL skills? ATL means approaches to learning, which shows us what are the steps or skills we need to achieve or do to reach our learning goal. This will make us work much more harder and efficiently if we follow these skills. This can also be developed as our own skill, as communication towards others and discussing ideas. How are we using ATL skills in our work? In this project, we are using ATL skills to make us more productive of our learning and understand what are we doing right. The main ATL skill I am approaching is self-management skills. Because it teaches us if we're organized towards our work, focus and concentrate on our studies, develop our minds to change, and to be open to new learning skills. These skills are a gate to open a new skills every time and will help us throughout the way. Which ATL skills should I improve on in the next test? On the next Criterion A test, or in my next assessment, I would like to improve on the ATL skill research and self-management. Self-management because it requires concentration, focus, positive thinking, dealing with unexpected change, and reduce stress and anxiety. And for research, evaluate multiple perspectives, assumptions, and knowledge of understanding. As you can see here, I picked the ATL skill self-management for this Criterion A test I did, because it makes me more prepared and organized for the test. As you can see, most of my answers for each question were Muppet moves, so I wasn't fully prepared for this type of test. So this means I need more concentration, more focus, which is the same thing. I have to be more challenging, revise more, be open, and just keep on studying on the questions that I find difficult on. As you can see here, I ticked on which were my strong points and my weak points. So these are my strong and weak points.